Sapiens! Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 most important structures inside of a human body cell. And this might seem unimportant, but it is actually quite important in case it comes up in tests and stuff. So, as last time, I'm going to make a white scream of you again. First of all, because the cell needs to keep all of its other structures inside, it will need a barrier or wall or something. And that's the role of the membrane. They are thin but continuous, meaning there aren't any gaps, and its function is to control what goes in and goes out. When something wants to go in the cell, like nutrients and oxygen, it will use a process called diffusion. So what happens is the material will slowly go towards the cell membrane, and once it's right up against it, it will fall through like it wasn't even there. And the cell membrane, it won't receive any damage or adverse effects. And then the second important thing, the cell has to keep a place of sorts to store their DNA. And that is what the nucleus is for. It stores DNA and proteins. And because it also stores proteins, that means it can create copies of genes. Copies of genes are made inside the nucleus and then are prepared so that they can be translated into proteins by ribosomes in the cytoplasm. Now, because the cell has to keep something to contain its many organelles, it chooses the cytoplasm to do that job. The cytoplasm is a jello-like, it has a jello-like consistency, and it holds up the organelles. And its function is to act as a chemical processing factory for the cell. And so it can process proteins, it can also process, everything that the cell needs. And because the cell needs things to be able to process things, it needs energy. And that energy comes from the powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria. They are membrane-bound organelles, and their function is to convert food into energy, or ATP, adenosine triphosphate, by aerobic respiration, which is basically respiration with oxygen. Self-explanatory. Here's a little story about mitochondria. Once upon a time, there was a cell looking for energy, and also there was a mitochondria just minding its own business. The cell found the mitochondria, and because it is a good source of food, it ate the mitochondria. But then, because the cell is so good-hearted, it decided to keep the mitochondria alive in a relationship of sorts. The mitochondria will supply the cell with food, and the cell will protect the mitochondria from intruders or invaders. Basically pathogens that want to kill the mitochondria, which is a lot of things. Eventually, when the cell duplicated itself, the mitochondria also duplicated itself. And so, all cells from that point forward have mitochondria in them, all thanks to that one good-hearted cell. Okay, moving on to the 5th and final most important thing inside of a cell. The ribosomes. It is an organelle that can convert genetic material into proteins, and it's not surrounded by a membrane. It does this by doing protein synthesis. And because it can do protein synthesis, it is kept somewhat close to the nucleus, so that the genes don't have to travel very far. The ribosomes are made up of 2 lobes, the bigger one and a smaller one. The bigger one will accept amino acids so that they can translate the genes into into proteins to be used later. And that's the 5 most important structures in a cell. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.